Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Put IBM Operations in Your Pocket, coming to you from beautiful Eden Prairie, located right here in Minnesota in the USA. And thank you for joining us today. So today we're going to be discussing with you our latest technology and updates to our new web user interface for Robot Schedule and Network. Now, if you haven't seen the new Robot Schedule functionality and the network performance monitoring and setup that's available through this new web user interface, then you're in for a real treat today. Now, this includes new features that make monitoring and analysis of your IBM Robot Schedule and consolidated monitoring features of Robot Network quick, easy, convenient, wherever you are. My name is Chuck Basinski, and I'm the Director of Automation Technology for the Robot product line here at Help Systems, and every day I have the honor and privilege of speaking with our customers to discuss solutions we have for automation, business intelligence, and security on IBM, as well as other server technology that we support. And I will be joined by Sarah Williams. She's going to be answering questions a little bit later. We do have an action-packed presentation today, so there'll just be a few minutes for questions at the very end. So please feel free to chat in any questions that you might have, and we will answer those either at the end of the presentation, at the end of the live demo, or potentially we'll be following up after the webinar ends today. And as you can see, we love flannel here in the North Woods of Minnesota, and we love a nice plaid pattern. I mean, we don't wear kilts here. We wear flannel shirts that are plaid, so we have a lot of fun with that. And we really do wear a lot of flannel. Okay, so this modern interface for Robot, as you can see here, is based on browser architecture that we introduced more than a year ago now for Robot Network. And you'll see today that we have much more in store for this tool across our brand. So this is what our agenda looks like. It's a short agenda, and we're actually going to start by looking at the results of a survey that we did for the IBM Marketplace. This is part of the IBM Marketplace survey, and specifically, this is one of the questions that we asked our survey respondents, and we had about 350, 360 companies respond to our survey request. And this question was, what are your top concerns in your IBM or your IT environment? Actually, this was not IBM specific question. This was more of a general question. And the number one item that came up was modernizing applications. This came in front of high availability. This came in front of even IBM skills depletion. So application modernization certainly is high on everyone's agenda, and obviously plugs right in to the topic of this webinar. So just real quickly, so how does a web user interface help? I mean, why not just stick with a GUI? Well, heck, why not just stick with the green screen? Well, first of all, the web user interface offers lower administrative cost over a graphical interface installed on your desktop, because now you've just got one place to update the application, and you'll be doing that on the centralized HTTP server that you will download from our website and install on a Windows or Linux server. Now, this interface allows secure mobile access. In fact, we did this webinar last week for our U.S. contingent, and we had a huge number of people participate in the webinar. We had almost 200 people, and one of the participants emailed me just yesterday saying that he downloaded and installed the HTTP server, he configured it, and he was in the parking lot of a local department store, Target stores, and he was able to check on a particular job and rerun it from the web interface in the parking lot. All he had to do was install a VPN client on his mobile phone, and he was able to access his Robot schedule. Very cool story. So you'll see today also that you have deep visibility into both performance as well as processes. So we're going to get all the way into the job log from the web user interface. The other thing is that this tool consolidates product information not just from Robot Network and Robot Schedule, but also from our other robot products. So for instance, you're going to see today how our Robot Space can escalate into our Robot Network tool. So we're not just going to talk about the web user interface, but we are going to talk a little bit about the functionality of the robot tools, especially Robot Network, because there are a number of folks out there who aren't familiar with that product. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be consolidating all this information from multiple robot products as well as multiple partitions. Great place to consolidate information from multiple partitions. And this is a very good-looking interface, so your CIO, who might not be all that familiar with IBM, can fully appreciate how this looks. And at the end of the presentation, you're going to see how this is our architecture that we're going to take across our various product lines into the future. Now, if you're familiar with the IBM interface, obviously that plugs into the robot story as well, because of course robot started in the green screen, so you're probably familiar with that. You know, even our graphs that we had, of course, we had to figure out how to do that with the the very large pixels that are available, only available on the green screen. And then about 10 years ago, we started deploying our robot tools in a thick client that you would install on your Windows desktop. So whether you're using Robot Schedule, Robot Network, Robot Space, or one of our other tools, you install that on a desktop, and of course we've got plenty of functionality built into that. But now the web user interface is king. This is where we're spending our development, research and development dollars. And one of the great features of the web user interface is the ability to go mobile. And without a doubt, mobile is truly king, and we have to roll out our products into that environment, because that's really where the demand is. Now, this new Help Systems web user interface is really part of a roadmap for the web architecture to become our operations console. And it also includes our Robot Network operations interface, and will include other robot products such as Robot Console and Robot Space. And it's the same browser architecture being used in our PowerTech security brand right now as well. Now, in this interface, in the screen capture that I have, notice you're now able to include both Robot Network and Robot Schedule information all in the same dashboard. And you can access this dashboard through what's called a guest profile. And we'll show you how to do that, where you'll actually configure a profile within the administrative functions of the web user interface, which means that guest profile does not have to have credentials on an IBM or even LDAP. They can just authenticate directly to the HTTP server, and then they've got access to the performance dashboards within the product, but it's very limited access. Now, a brand new feature of the web user interface for Robot Schedule is something called a business window. And it's there where you define a period of time, and then the business window tells you, for instance, if a particular window or particular job ran before its specific time that it was supposed to, or ran somehow outside of its business window. Kind of like Robot ESP, we call it. Another feature of the web user interface that you will appreciate greatly is our newly redesigned job flow diagram. In our graphical interface, we do have a job flow diagram called a blueprint, and we've redesigned it and made it a little better organized than in the graphical. And so what we do is we organize the flow from left to right in a chronological dependency format. The job flow looks very nice on mobile technology, whether it's a iPhone or Android or possibly a tablet. And also we've added a play button. And with the play button, you will actually see your job flow live. This is not a simulation. This is live. And as the processes run, you will see these individual job icons pulse and they'll actually change colors so that you'll see that they are active, and you'll see that move along. Now, the performance graph have been greatly improved in the web user interface even since we first shipped the product. First of all, you can see that you can display multiple IBM partitions or systems on the same graph. The performance graphs are expandable, so they look very small now. I mean, these are what we call widgets that are plugged into this dashboard. They're all expandable, and you can choose what systems you display on your graph. But this gives you a very good overall picture. And because we're using a responsive design, the performance graphs reformat themselves for the landscape available. So if you only have an iPhone or an Android phone, of course they will resize appropriately and they'll look good. Now the great thing about these performance dashboards is that you can drill down, and we're going to show you this live, and I'm going to show you what it looks like now just to sort of prep you. So here we're looking at CPU history, historical CPU history for last week. And we're showing you right here the performance history for a particular day. And what we're showing you is the average, that's the solid line, and then we're showing you the range of the CPU for that day. So what we can do then is we can drill into that day, and we can see all the data points for that day. And then if we want to drill in, for instance, to a particular peak, we can select that as well, and we'll drill into the specific performance data that was collected for that day and time. And this particular screen is looking at what we call the system status information. We also have the memory pool information as well as the disk unit information. But for instance, CPU percentage is displayed here, system ASP is displayed here. We have our number of jobs metric. That can be very critical on multiple systems if you've got a lot of activity on your system, as well as interactive response time. And then if you select, for instance, memory pools, we'll show you the memory pool information. And then you can select a different time range as well. We're going to show you that live today. Any of the collected information is available. Now, the latest release of the web user interface for the robot tools also includes what is basically a complete replacement of the setup features and all the other functionality that's built into Robot Network is now available in the web user interface. So your host and node setup features are available in the web user interface along with all the performance metrics. Now, if you're not all that familiar with Robot Network is a tool that basically consolidates together all your robot information for all of your partitions. So what that gives you is something called a status center. And the status center is where all the critical threshold information is displayed. All the exceptions are displayed in the status center. It's almost kind of like a glorified display message queue sysoper. So for instance, if you have Robot Console across all of your IBM partitions and you intercept a critical informational or inquiry message, that will be escalated into the status center. So it's a centralized location to answer messages, and it's also a central location to get at and work with your performance information across all your IBM partitions. Okay, and that brings us to our live demo. You have the opportunity to ask questions about anything you see today or anything that is on your mind regarding our web user interface. Please feel free to chat that in, and we will get started with our demonstration. Okay, first of all, you'll be downloading this HTTP server to a Windows or Linux server, and you'll install it there. It's very quick and easy to install. And then the configuration is done by basically pointing the HTTP server back at your IBM I. And I'm actually going to log in as the administrator just for a second so you can see what that looks like. Now, first of all, notice that the authentication in this case is being provided by an IBM I system called Wisdom. So I'm now logging into the HTTP server, and notice we have two IBM I connections, so I've set up my master credentials, so to speak, to go back and connect to those IBM I servers. Also, let's take a look at authentication. As I mentioned, we're authenticating to an IBM I. You could also use LDAP. And this is also where you'll be setting up your guest login. So you can see we have a guest login called CIO and a very top secret password that will only we'll only share it with the CIO. And that gives the CIO functionality. Let's take a look at that. The functionality there only allows them to get at our performance dashboards. So for instance, if I want to look at robot schedule information from a CIO standpoint, that's the only thing I can get to. Okay, so for instance, if I wanted as a CIO, if I wanted to get, for instance, into the robot network configuration, I won't be able to do that. I'm limited to only the performance dashboards. And of course, the CIO, the C-level folks love dashboards, so this is a great option. Okay, I'm going to log out, and this time I'm going to log in as myself, so I get a bit more functionality. Okay, first of all, you're seeing a new panel. If you do use our robot network tool, this is a brand new screen, and this is the robot network home screen. It gives you a picture of your overall partition status. It shows you the host and node information and which of those are online. And then for each of the systems in your robot network, it gives you a status as to how many outstanding issues there are. In this system, there's 106. The red line indicates the number of very critical statuses. The orange are sort of in between, just warnings, and then you've got the blue informational. And likewise on my Academy system, I got just a few less. And then from a performance standpoint, we're collecting performance information about every hour on this system. I'll show you where that's configured. You could, for instance, collect the performance information every 5 minutes if you wanted to, but it shows you in a color-coded format where you are with your performance metrics. Now, this uses a responsive design. For instance, if I use my scroll wheel or I pinch and zoom on my tablet or on my iPhone, the interface will reformat itself appropriately. So that's pretty handy. Now, also, you can bookmark these pages. I'm using the Chrome browser, so I've got some bookmarks for instance, certain dashboards, performance and scheduling for my performance overview, even my critical jobs list. So any of the pages that you can get to in this browser are bookmarkable, and that's one of the advantages of going with a web user interface. Okay, let's take a look at some of the dashboards. So I've got a number of dashboards here. From an end user standpoint, an end user could create a dashboard. So for instance, if I create a webinar dashboard, I could share that with all the other users of the HTTP server. I also have the option of making that a guest dashboard. I can choose whether I want 1, 2, or 3 columns of information. And then, let's do that. And then you choose what widgets you want to include from our robot schedule and robot network tools. Now keep in mind there's going to be other robot tools as well as other health systems tools eventually included in this interface. So I mentioned robot console and robot space will be included in the future, but right now the robot schedule metrics can be added. So for instance, job history, job monitoring history, total job run information, and then you could also choose robot network widgets. So we're talking about performance-related information, CPU, disk, faulting rates. We have a new widget called a performance summary, and then we have our statuses window, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So you can just select as many of these widgets as you want, and that's what's going to display. Okay, so just to give you an example of what this looks like, this is the performance dashboard, and I have 6 widgets included in this performance dashboard. And I'm collecting this information from multiple IBM I systems, so you're going to see at least 2 systems and possibly 3 systems displayed in this performance dashboard. Okay. What I'm going to show you is the capability of the performance dashboard to drill down into the various performance metrics that Robot Network is collecting. So for instance, let's say I want to specifically look at the DiscBusy information. I've got, first of all, multiple disk units collected here. And if, for instance, I wanted to drill into this particular day, now I've got all my collected data points from that day displayed here. This is all December 13th information. And if I want to drill in, for instance, into a particular peak, now what you're going to see is the specific information collected from 11 a.m. Central Time on December 13th. Now, I selected a dashboard that was disk information. And so here is my disk unit information for each one of my disks, showing me the DiscBusy information, the amount used. But I could also take a look at whatever my system status information was at that time. So, for instance, I might want to compare my DiscBusy information to my overall CPU percentage used. So it looks like at 11 a.m. we're using 24% of the CPU, 74% of the overall system ASP, and the number of jobs on the system was 1,800. And our average response time, well, we didn't have much interactive processing going on, but what I could do is maybe there's another time period that I'm interested in looking at. So I've got all those data points out here. So for instance, if I wanted to look at 3 in the morning on December 11th, I have that information available to me as well. Okay, let's take a look at Robot Schedule next. I'm going to look at something called the home screen for Robot Schedule. Again, this is brand new technology that's only available in the web interface. The top is basically a consolidated format of our schedule activity monitor. So if you ever looked at our schedule activity monitor, you'll see we have a forecast column, an active column, and a finished column. And of course, what we can do is we can drill down directly from that summary into the detail. So this is our completed and failed column in the schedule activity monitor, our recent activities, so to speak. Now let's look at some more familiar things. If you're using Robot Schedule, for instance, and you just want to navigate around the jobs, you can search through the jobs on the search line. And this is really where I always start. So for instance, if I want to look at all jobs that start with CL, here's all the jobs that start with CL. I just typed that in at the top. Or if I want to look at all my accounting jobs, that's one of my application codes. Here's all my accounting jobs. Or if I want to look at all the jobs that are running on one of my Robot Schedule Enterprise agent servers, one of my Windows servers, HS2128, here is my HS2128 jobs. So, for instance, I could drill into the properties of one of my jobs from here. And what you're going to see is that from Robot Schedule standpoint, this is a view only of the setup of this job. So, for instance, here's the commands that are going to be executing out of this job. These are IBM commands, these are Windows commands, or Windows BAT files, or executables, or Linux scripts, or something like that, because that's the type of job that this is. So all my other run criteria is listed. You notice we also have some job monitors configured here. Here's the agent that we're going to be running this job on. So, for instance, if I'm having trouble with a job, I could drill into it right there and get additional information. Other things I can do, I can insert a schedule override like a hold code. I could run the job right now if I needed to. I could also look at the job completion information to see how this job has run in the past. So it looks like, for the most part, we've had mostly green completions. And then from here, I can drill into job log information. All right, so there's my job log. Now, keep in mind, I'm doing this on my desktop, but I could do this on my phone or my tablet. All right, let's take a look and see what sort of information. Now, here's my agent log that I'm having returned back from the Windows agent back to my IBM, and this is being placed into a spool file. So all the job log information or any spool file information is available through this web interface. Now, likewise, I mentioned there's a specific feature called the critical jobs list that's available. So, for instance, for my finance critical jobs, I have a query, a robot query that identifies my critical jobs on my Wisdom system. I might have more than one system that I want to include. So you can see right here I have Academy and Wisdom. I'm looking at all my critical backups across multiple systems. And then what I can do from here is, for instance, I could drill into the schedule activity monitor for that system, but just for those critical jobs. So these are my accounting jobs. And once again, from here you can see I have a job that's active, and I could drill in, for instance, into the job log, and as you can see, I'm actually waiting on a message. All right, so I could do this on my desktop, I could do it on my iPhone, I could do it on a tablet. Now, because this is waiting on a message, I might be interested in, well, I wonder how this affects other downstream jobs. So I can look at the job flow diagram, we call it a diagram, and you can see my job that's having an issue is right here. It's at the bottom of the dependencies at the very end, so it's not really holding up any work. But from here, I could click on that box, and I could look at things like the properties of the job. I could look at the job completion history. I could place the job on hold. I could rerun the job if I needed to from this interface. So this is not just a pretty picture, it's actually a place that has some functionality. Okay, now you might be wondering, this is how the full-size browser looks. Let's take a quick look. I'm going to bring up my iPhone just so you can see very quickly what that looks like on a much smaller piece of real estate. So now we're talking an interface that's maybe 1.5 inches wide by about 4 inches tall, and we're going to look at the same information. Okay, so this is my own personal iPhone, and here is the robot login. So I'm going to authenticate with my IBM I. Now I'm using our internal wireless network. So if you did want to use this outside of your office, you would need to load up a VPN client on your iPhone or Android. So here's my robot network summary. If, for instance, I wanted to work on my inside of robot schedule, and I wanted to work with that same schedule activity list, I could do that. Okay, here's my jobs that are forecasted that should be running sometime in the future. Here's my active job. So from here, for instance, I could get at the job log, or I could, for instance, diagram the job to see how that's going to affect all the other processes that it might be dependent on or it might be part of. So I'm just using the pinch zoom option here, and you know, even though this is a very small piece of real estate, it's still very easy to read. All right. Now, there is a message waiting on that job, the CL Air INV job, so I'm going to answer that message. So that is one of the features of this web interface, is the ability to get at Robot Network and the Status Center. Okay, so here's all the various statuses. That happens to be a Robot Console status. We intercepted the message, and there is my message right there from my job. So I'm actually going to answer the message from this job. All right, so there's my message information. Now I could add notes, ticket information, or I could just simply enter a reply. And I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to send that off. And what that's going to do is that's going to answer the message back in QSys Hopper. Okay, so that's a quick look at what the web user interface looks like in a very small piece of real estate inside of an iPhone. Now, what does the future look like for the web interface for our robot tools as well as our other product lines? We'll take a close look at this. This is Robot Schedule and Robot Network in the web user interface, but also we've got our PowerTech Security. We have our SkyBot multi-platform scheduler as well as our Automate Windows tool, all in the same web interface. So this is the future of our web user interface across all of our major brands that are part of the Help Systems family. Now, you might be interested in giving this web interface a try. You certainly can do that. All you have to do is open up a browser and go to webdemo.helpsystems.com and use the username demo and the password demo. So webdemo.helpsystems.com, and you can give this a try for yourself. All right, and that brings us to our conclusion. Very easy to deploy this solution. If you'd like to give mobile a try with your robot tools, you certainly can do that. You can consolidate multiple partitions of information as well as multiple robot products into the same place. And my suggestion is get used to it, like it, because this is going to be the future. And okay, we do have a question. One of the questions, and we do get this on occasion, why is the HTTP server not hosted on IBM I? And Colin, the answer to that is because this is going to be our consolidation platform for products that run both on the I and not on the I. All right, so we do have a couple of tools that were included in our consolidated web interface that don't run on I. So our Automate tool is strictly for Windows. SkyBot is Windows, Linux, and AIX, also has an IBM I agent. Our PowerTech security solution is IBM I. Robot Network is I. Robot Schedule is I, but also can reach out to Windows, Linux, and AIX. But for instance, PowerTech is also going to be deploying a Windows compliance tool over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's sort of our direction. We are probably, at this point, a solution provider that provides about 80% IBM I solutions, 20% at Windows, Linux, and AIX, but that's going to be increasing. So anyway, thanks for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this look at the web and mobile interface for our robot tools, and keep your eye out for additional add-ons to this technology. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye-bye.